Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one of these fun episode editions of the SWW show for some interviews. I'm Mike, and today I have with me a special guest to talk about. I guess it's a little late to talk about horror games, but it's fine. We will accept it. Anyway, if you could please introduce yourself and the game we're here to talk about.
Hey there, my name is Raz. I'm one of the co-creators of Dark Fracture, which is a psychological horror game. It's about to come out about soon-ish. We're planning to get to early access by the end of February. And
that's good. That's good intro to explain it. It's a psychological horror game. So, is it fair to say kind of like you have some obvious inspirations for this game, like the early Resident Evils or Silent Hill or stuff like that, or is there any other games that really stood out for you while creating this?
Yeah, we have some obvious inspirations that we started with. For example, Amnesia and Visage. Both of them were a great inspiration where it just started out, but we've been branching a bit further from those games as we worked, because we wanted to make something that's more unique, something that's more us, rather than something that's just, okay, we saw this thing, we want to make this thing, we wanted to make something that's, that's unique to us, that's our vision, which is why our game has this blend of both the psychological, paranormal horror and the more alien horror, H.R. Giger style kind of weird, nightmarish landscapes that you will eventually explore in Dark Fracture.
More details, kind of what you mean by that, and kind of what makes your game kind of stand out to other things in the genre?
Well, our game generally, we want to blend two types of horror. We have the paranormal horror that's centered around our world, our reality, and all sorts of jump scares and weird events that happen in our reality. And then there's the alternative reality, the other world. It's kind of like, you can say, inspired by the way that Silent Hill, for example, has the normal world and the horror world, Silent Hill version of everything, but this is more of an alien landscape that's inspired by the works of H.R. Giger and Beksinski. It's more twisted and bizarre and fantastical in a way that's completely different to the normal world that you experience when you're outside of the nightmarish world.
Always fascinating whenever I see games kind of do this, like, I hate to say like a dual world thing, but like kind of like you see one and it kind of affects the other, kind of. So your guys' team though is decently small, right? I'm not crazy to say it's a very small team.
It's a tiny team. We're just 2 people, so.
Right. So I'm curious, kind of like, because like to me, you just doubled your work balance. Like, how are you guys balancing that while keeping the game within the scope without like trying to kill yourselves?
Well, it involves working insane hours without stopping ever, pretty much. We work every day, almost all day long. Both me and my partner just work non-stop. And we use what little fundings we have from our own pockets to make up the differences where we need a little bit more, say, sound effects and music, that none of us are musicians, and basically just try our hardest for ridiculous hours, which is why sometimes we do experience delays, because with a team as tiny as ours, it's difficult to push everything you want on the polish level that you're trying to get to.
That makes a lot of sense of saying that there would be an insane amount of work for 2 people and just you have to work continually. What I'm curious about, so obviously you guys are a horror game that's going into early access, and that to me is always interesting because you guys are a less procedural game, and those are the ones I feel like tend to be more early access just inherently because of the nature of replaying them, kind of. So what can people expect from this early access release around February-ish?
Well, you can expect a hell of a lot more than what was already available in the prologue. We're gonna unlock the facility itself that we were talking about in the story. The facility has a lot more space to explore, a lot more things to interact with. There are going to be a lot more scares and more story, as well as you're going to experience more of the other world, which in the prologue you only got the smallest glimpses of, but you're gonna have more of that as well. So basically, you're gonna experience a lot more of the world of Dark Fracture, but since it's early access, it's still not all of it. Just a lot more than what we had before.
That definitely makes sense. Of it's early access, you don't want to blow your load immediately because obviously you have a lot more to make of it, probably too. So one of the concerns I think that tends to exist, and I was hoping you could alleviate them, for a lot of people when you play this kind of game in early access is the idea of like they'll see everything or like be playing in the future kind of like parts of the game will be ruined. Are you guys designing with that in mind, or are you saying to those players kind of if you're concerned about that, wait a little bit down the road for early access and we'll just have more content for you to consume?
Well, a lot of the game is going to remain roughly the same, but the thing is that Dark Fracture has a lot of procedural scares and procedurally generated horror, which means your playthroughs are going to be a bit different anyway, and you're planning on adding more choices to the story, more things that you as a player can choose to do which affect things later on, and in this way your playthroughs are going to be unique anyway. And adding to that, we're adding new scares and new events as we go along. Even the prologue we just recently updated with a few brand new scares and obviously polish and bug fixes that we're trying to continually do as we go on.
Is one of the very interesting things is I feel like a lot of games don't do is you guys are updating the demo. I'm curious kind of maybe you guys' thought process of why is it worth it to you guys to update that demo? Is it just because that way, if someone goes tries that, it's at least closer to the final product? Or do you feel like there are glaring errors in the demo you just guys needed to fix just to make you guys feel it was a more representative?
Well, it's a mixture of wanting our product to feel more in line with what comes next, because we don't want a strange leap in quality and polish. It just feels weird when we go from the prologue to the actual game. Plus, we're trying our best to take any bit of criticism and bug reports and feedback and make sure that our game feels great. And the best way to do that before we release the early access is to do it on the prologue itself. So people can experience it right now. They can leave their feedback right now. So we want to make sure the experience right now is great, or as great as we can make it.
Of course, obviously I think that's a very assumed assumption. You always want to make it as great as humanly possible. So one of the things that I like talking about devs right now is you guys have been getting to talk about advertise your game during, let's just say, a very interesting time in the world. And in that in mind, I'm curious, how has marketing and getting pre-release stuff out to your game dramatically changed since the entire world is shut down? One of the things I've noticed, at least for you guys, that I'm kind of curious to touch on too, is it looks like you guys were at GDEX this year, which is a show based on where you guys are from, I'd assume you wouldn't normally go to. So it's like opportunities like that really popped up of like being able to go to international shows because of the online presence of them.
Yeah, actually, the fact that most of just about everything happens online because of the things happening in the world right now, it did give us a few unique opportunities that otherwise would be extremely difficult and extremely expensive, but we can actually take them now because well, we don't need flight tickets, we don't need hotels, we don't need all the extra stuff around it that for a game as small as ours with no budget, it would be extremely difficult to actually get to. So strangely enough, the situation right now did help us somewhat with our marketing and our ability to broadcast ourselves to everyone who would listen, pretty much.
Yeah, I know that definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, kind of, because every developer I feel like tells me a different answer. Do you feel that these digital shows are still useful getting the game out, or do you feel you guys get lost in the wave a lot more of the games? Because I've heard both from indie developers of saying, "Oh, it's really helpful because I get to so many of them," but other developers being like, "Yes, but so many few eyeballs are on them, or pay attention so much less."
Well, since we didn't have the opportunity to participate in the non-online version, our only experience is in the online world right now. But I can say for certain that at least a few events, we definitely saw an increase in interest and downloads and eyeballs after the event. So these events do actually help, and they do pull in a crowd, and they do pull in more attention.
Interesting, okay. No, I was just very curious because it's definitely a very mix back and forth. People saying yes and no. So back to kind of Dart Fracture itself then. So obviously we talked about you have the prologue. Game is coming out in early access some point in February. Obviously one of the things that...
Towards the end.
Yeah, towards the end of February. Again, roughly February. We're not holding you to a date here. I'm curious kind of, so early access obviously, as you talked about, would be new scares, more stability, more experiences kind of things. If someone buys the game in February and then is looking forward to the couple months after that, do you guys have kind of what big features you're working on next in mind, or is it kind of like you're kind of waiting to see what the feedback from the audience is before you really decide what that next step looks like?
Well, we already have a plan for what we have right now until the end of the game. So even when we get feedback, we use the feedback to polish what we have and maybe change things up a little, and of course make sure everything feels as good as it can be. But we also have our own vision, our own story that we want to tell. So at the end of the day, we are trying to push this specific tale of horror, this specific vision that we have, just make sure that it feels as good as possible to play based on all the feedback and all the commentary that we get from people. So, yeah, carry on.
No, that makes sense. So one of the things I want to tap on, kind of, that I realized I want to touch on it, is so the storyline is interesting. So you guys, obviously, from your accent, aren't from, America originally, or at all. And I'm curious kind of where you get your inspirations from. So obviously your storyline is set in 90s America, rural America. And I'm curious kind of what are you pulling from kind of to get that background? Is it like you're just going through pop culture and fiction? Or are you guys going through history? I'm kind of just curious kind of, obviously someone who's grew up kind of in that area, kind of what is you guys are pulling from, so what we expect.
Yeah, since obviously we're foreign, our inspiration generally comes from pop culture, from other horror titles, horror movies, horror games, and general research online to see how things roughly were, so we can try and make some manner of experience that feels, oh yeah, it seems like it could be in some strange, out of the way location in rural America.
That is interesting. Do you have, this is going to sound like a weird oddball question, do you have a state in mind you guys are kind of setting this in, or are you just kind of keeping as generic rural America?
We do have a rough location. It's roughly around Maine, which is a very Stephen King location to have things happening.
100%. That's the most Stephen King. You're like rural, foresty Maine, probably on the tip of when it's about to snow, in the dusk. That's a very Stephen King location.
Yeah, it's exactly why it shows it, because, well, Stephen King, everyone who loves horror knows Stephen King at least. It's a bit of a reference and an inspiration source both. So we chose to go with Maine because of that.
Enough. So let's make sure that people understand. The game we've talked about is Dark Fracture. You guys are Twisted Tube Studio.
Yeah.
So the game will be out in early access at some point in Q1 2021, February-ish, with a giant asterisk there because development is fun. What can people expect the game to cost? If you guys have determined that so far, kind of when the game comes into early access.
Right now, we're planning to make the game cost somewhere between the $18 and $20, and make sure that there's enough content to be worth it, of course. But as we draw closer to the actual release date, we will settle in on a more concrete number. Because right now we only have a rough plan that is generally based on what we saw is commonly acceptable among other games of the same genre.
Other question, I'm curious, do you guys have a plan to raise the price kind of as development goes on, or do you kind of very much being like, here is our price for the game, kind of going to stick to it?
We are generally planning to increase the price as we release more content, so the complete full game, whenever that releases, is going to cost more than the early access, but of course, if you buy the early access, you get the game, period. You don't need to pay more or anything like that.
Perfect. Well, I want to say thanks again for sitting down with me. I think during your late afternoon or evening over where you are, do you mind one last time telling people where they could find the game or any other locations you want to go send them to check it out?
Of course, you can find us on Steam, search for Dark Fracture or Dark Fracture Prologue if you want to play the prologue. You can find us on Facebook and on Twitter, search for Dark Fracture there as well. You can find it on itch.io, GameJolt, and IndieDB as well. We can find our dev blogs on these locations and obviously the prologue itself, and any news that we want to release. We also have a Discord group that you can join. We have links on our Steam pages as well. So you can find all these locations.
Well, thank you again, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and best of luck finishing development in your last remaining 2 months. Try to get some sleep in some capacity, which I know is probably impossible.
We're definitely struggling to balance actual human needs and development. Thanks for having me, of course.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another of these fun interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today with me another international guest, because somehow I keep getting these because of AJ's schedule, from, I guess, all the way across the pond is what we normally say when people are over in where he is.
That big old pond after you ditched our pee in the river.
Perfect. Do you mind introducing us by saying your name and the game we're going to talk about?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I am George Berry. I'm the creative director of Woodsalt. Well, creative director of Team Woodsalt, the company who creatively named another game Woodsalt after our name because, I'm not a writer. And yeah, it's a action visual novel kind of between the two. I've been working on it 6 years. You would have thought I'd come up with an elevator pitch by now, but it's not how my brain works.
So
coming out December 9th about weird stuff and people. There you go, sold.
Immediate question I've got to ask, because I ask this every time someone does this. Now that you have named your team after your first game, does that mean every single name from this point forward has to be somehow related to that name of the game, or you're just not going to carry out the second game?
Yes, so we've got so we've actually been writing the stories for a while, and so when we founded the company, we had to put a business plan because we got private investors in. So I had to put a business plan together with all the future titles. So we got about 6-7 titles that are all within the same storyline, and they're all sort of like Woodsalt. So the next one, I think it's like Woodsalt Exodus. But then we had other stories that were written in the same universe that happened like thousands of years apart. that were just named, like one, for instance, was named Fierce, and now they'll be like Woodsalt Fierce. But originally, actually, I misspoke. Originally, the company name was something different. I had to change the company name. Initially, it was Digi-Nigiri, as in Digital Nigiri. I was going through a big weeb phase, although arguably, considering the game that we just made, I still am going through that phase. But a lot of the investors were sort of like older white English dudes, very much pie and mash and caviar types. And so they didn't know how to pronounce nigiri. So I'll let you think on that and why I had to change the name.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
When you're sat in a meeting room with about 8 older white men all mispronouncing nigiri, and suddenly you realize you might have a bit of a problem.
Are you implying to me that the issue with older investors is sometimes you introduce a new phrase and they just kind of stare at you? I've never heard those complaints in the slightest, ever.
No, I know. It's quite unique, isn't it?
So so that is, I think, roughly the issue, guys, then. Obviously, you said you have some funding backing you in the back end, kind of, and now you're coming out, as we're talking, with Woodsalt. As you said, it was a visual action novel, which I think is a very interesting combo, if you kind of want to walk down that road a little bit more.
Yeah, so there were times... So I really like the Walking Dead Telltale game series. I really loved... I played Persona 4 all the way through. I played some of Persona 5, but life just got busy, unfortunately. And other similar games like Mass Effect as well, and my favourite parts in all of those were the sort of conversation decision makings. PC Gamer decided to somewhat throw me under the bus lately and spark an outrage on Twitter. I'm very used to the grind, so my favourite game is Final Fantasy VII, which is one of the easier Final Fantasies, but to 100% it, you still need to grind a lot. But the thing I loved about the Walking Dead games and Persona, etc., is that the story is delivered through these conversation choices and these trees. And I found myself wanting to sort of fast forward through the dungeons or the action sequences just to get back to this. And for a while, I thought that I'd just enjoy visual novels. And so, some of them I did. I mean, of course, probably the most famous one in the current gaming zeitgeist at the moment would be Doki Doki Literature Club. And I sort of found as much as I enjoyed them, I missed sort of the sort of roaming aspect, like running around and talking to people and sort of like secret hunting, because the visual novel genre doesn't really lend itself to that, as, it's a visual novel. And there weren't many games that sort of did or do what Woodsalt does. And that's not in a grandiose way. I'm not suggesting that we're reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But in the same way that you sort of got this genre of walking simulators that came out over the last decade because they themselves did something that hadn't really been done, weirdly by removing things to sort of streamline their story. And yeah, as of yet, I can't... I'm sure someone will actually me and correct me and say there is a genre for this. But to me, it felt like a big... like a mix between a visual novel and an adventure game. But not quite fully in either of those. So if anyone listening has an idea of what the hell I should start calling it and just help me out, then let me know, please. Please, God.
Actual question on that train is, why go down this kind of road versus like an RPG, which I feel inherently lends itself in that kind of mixture really well, especially if you want to talk about JRPGs.
Yeah.
A lot of times they are very inherently that kind of novel heavy because of text.
Yeah. Well, initially we did really want to do that. So our script, it wasn't until we finished the script and we did a word count that we realized that the original script was about 30,000 words longer than, say, Final Fantasy VII. We did a lot of editing after that, and it's now probably around the same, maybe a little less in total dialogue. But of course, Final Fantasy VII has lots of combat and XYZ. Again, I'm not drawing a direct comparison. I'm just talking about pure words on paper, so I don't want anyone claiming I'm the next Todd Howard or something, making crazy promises. But we're a small team. There's at our height, there was about 12 of us working on it. We wanted to do a combat system, and we were trying to think of how combat would work within the storyline of the game, but the story of the game is very much more of a drama than anything else. So if you sort of think of Life is Strange and the idea of putting a full combat situation into a full combat system into Life is Strange, it'll be a bit odd. So the story draws very heavily from sort of JRPG stories and also movies and books that I like. But more of the JRPG elements come in the style and how it's all presented. And in the end, we realized that, if we try to put a combat system into Woodsalt, this current Woodsalt, we run the risk of shoehorning it in and trying to write the story around, adding new combat scenes and maybe compromising the story. And also the fact that we didn't have the team for it. We didn't want to put something together, force in an action thing that would just be rubbish and ultimately slow down the gameplay and turn people off. We thought it'd be better if we just stuck to what we know. And while we've been developing, we have been researching combat systems and designing one for another game. Can't even remember what it's bloody called now. I think Woodsalt Epilogue. They've all got names in this business plan, which will be, or we're planning to be, a full JRPG. But we wanted to hold off and really make sure that if we're going to do something, we do it right. We don't overpromise. We just stick with what we know we can do and do that well. So that way, we hope that the people at the end playing it aren't disappointed.
No, that makes a lot of sense going there. I'm curious, kind of. So one of the things that kind of sticks out. So actually, I have a Steam page kind of open on my second monitor, just kind of as it's kind of cycling through. The art style is something I think is really sticking with me because I'm trying to think of the way to phrase it. It reminds me of like the cutscene versions of like a modern. God, why can't I think of the game? Fire Emblem-esque games, like the modern Pokemon kind of look, like that little, like how it is 3D. It's not quite low poly, but it's that kind of look to the characters. I'm curious.
Oh, what you mean the cutscenes or the in-game?
It seems a little bit of a mixture of both. It seems more like the in-game a lot of times.
The in-game, we just 100% ripped the style of Final Fantasy VII. Like, I'm not even going to pretend like that wasn't the case. That's you can quote me on that. I saw that. I was like, I really like that. I think it worked with the fact there wasn't voice acting in it, so you can sort of have these quiet ones. And for me, it was a nostalgia thing. I'm not typically one that wants to play off nostalgia. All these. The fact that we're sort of taking inspiration from JRPGs isn't to play on nostalgia. It's just because I personally really like that. And it's the same with the cutscenes. Definitely, they were designed to look like that PS1 sort of era cutscenes. And with the in-game ones, I mean, definitely, again, that was sort of, we were looking at Final Fantasy IX a lot. And is it I'm Setsuna?
Yeah, that sounds right. I'm Setsuna, which was like the Square Enix game, yeah.
Maybe I think they're just called Tokyo Studio. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's one of the Square Enix team. I remember they were doing that weird mini JRPG team. I think is what you're talking about, where there's like a couple of those games, kind of like different games, but like same team, kind of. It's like here's this $40 or $30 JRPG.
And that right at the beginning, in when I was writing the pitches, or not the pitches, the briefs for the graphics team and the art team. I referenced those two a lot, Final Fantasy IX, 7, and I'm Setsuna, with the idea of, like, I really like this graphical style. I think it really works for telling a story. It also helps us with the lower budgets because we don't have to, like, animate the faces. And it seemed not only to work well with contrast against the darker elements of the story, but also, it just worked out financially, Again, we're not a big AAA studio, so we didn't want to try and make a big AAA model and have it look absolute bollocks.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of, I want to jump back, actually, you keep talking about, which is kind of an absurdly long time, I want to call it, in such a your size game how it is. So you've been working on this game in some capacity for 6 years. First off, I think we got to touch on it, but I'm curious, kind of. So obviously you said the game has changed genres over that time.
Game, you wouldn't think it. I'm very open about that.
What else kind of, like, major things, like, I assume, is the game even close to...
You've gone on mute, mate, I think.
Can you hear me? This is why we love international interviews, people.
Fucking internet's gone down.
Going once, going twice. Sold, 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 and ba 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 ba. Are you gonna work? Na 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 na. 1 2 1 2. I have internet on my end. Oh. Can you hear me? Da da da. Ba, 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 ba. 1 2 1 2. Buckle mash. I'll say about like that 11-minute mark. Goes in and out. Ba 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 ba. Hey, do you hear me? Test, test. 1 2. Can you hear me?
There you go. Yeah. So, sorry about that, man. Basic.
George.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, we got an engineer outside who's decided that, during working hours in the UK, during Corona, with us all working from home, that now would be a good time to start working on the internet.
That is beautiful.
It's really useful. I'm glad that BT, British Telecom, are supporting us through this troubling time. I think last thing that I heard was you pointing out that in some capacity we have been working on this title for about 6 years.
Yeah, I was kind of saying, so you were working on this for a little bit, a tiny amount of time. I'd say like 3 British administrations, it sounds like equivalency of. So I'm curious, kind of, obviously you talked about the genre has changed. Is this game even close in some capacity to what you thought it was going to be?
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, you sort of look at 6 years, and we announced, or we started working on Woodsalt right around the time when Cyberpunk was announced, and you sort of look at the scale of that and then compare it to us. What you can do with 6 years. Also, just quick shout out, thanks to CD Projekt Red for moving the release of your game to the day after our game comes out, after we already moved our game to avoid clashing with yours. That's real handy. In terms of the game that we started with, the story hasn't really changed much. There's been like slight additions to it because as we sort of solidified more of the stories going forward and linking them all together, there's been some slight adjustments to certain importance of certain characters. Initially, it was going to be sort of a third-person, over-the-shoulder game. We were building that in Unreal, but it did change to the chibi sort of look after sort of a big server fire that we went through. So we had a programmer who had backups and everything, and his computer literally blew up, like set ablaze inside his house. And we learned very quickly from that that we should probably all have our own individual backups. But it sort of gave us an opportunity to look at what we were building, and being forced to do a hard reset allowed us to look at the issues that we were facing and certain things we were pushing uphill, and then be like, well, we're forced into this crap situation where we have to restart the development from square one. But a lot of times when people finish a project, they get to say, like, what would have we done differently?
You got to actually do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was, it's a silver lining to a pretty big cloud, but we were able to look at it and say, well, we can do it differently now, or we sort of have to do it differently now. So yeah, it did change, and the scale sort of went back, which I think ultimately was a good thing, because you look at so many projects from first-time studios these days, especially like Kickstarter projects, just like us, it's their first game. They sort of go in doe-eyed thinking that they can do all these amazing things, and then the reality sort of slaps them in the face. Luckily, due to the deletion of all the files, we were given an opportunity to scale back before we did get slapped in the face with sort of public reaction. But yeah, it was basically just that. It's just the graphical style changed and allowed us to work a lot quicker in some areas, which again, hilarious six-year development cycle. But it's our first time developing a game. So I've been in the video game industry for about 8-9 years now, through different areas. But we got to deal with publishers for the first time and learning the hard way. Some people aren't as legit as others, and the same with PR companies as well. So it wasn't so much 6 years development in terms of 6 years to get the game out. I mean, you look, the game would probably reasonably take a team our size, beginning to end, if we were working full time, 9 to 5, a team of 5 people, probably about 2 years to make, I'd say, including testing.
But you said you tapped at what, 12? Is that what you're saying?
What, sorry?
Saying you maxed out what, around 12 people, was it?
Around 12 people, yeah. So basically, when I first started it, I had these lofty dreams because I wasn't that long out of university myself. I had all these dreams of I'm going to hire people straight out of university and give them all these opportunities straight away. And there's some people. Our first 3D artists were all straight out of university in the UK. I was like, okay, so you're like the lead 3D artist and you're the lead environment artist. And these guys were very capable artists. They were very talented artists, but they hadn't been in a situation where they had this level of deadlines as opposed to university. Obviously, university and college has deadlines, but with this extra pressure of sort of someone else is going to take the kicking if it doesn't get on time. And so I had this situation where I feel like I had the right intentions. I wanted to give people an opportunity to put something cool on their CV, say they were like a lead artist or something. But, it was bad management on my part. I gave them too much responsibility that they weren't prepared for, and I sort of thrust it onto them where they likely would have just been equally happy, if not even more happy and comfortable, if they were just like a junior artist or just an artist in a team rather than that responsibility. And because of that, we suffered quite a lot of setbacks. Me giving people too much responsibility that they weren't prepared for, simply because they didn't have the experience to do it. If there's ever a failure in timelines and stuff, it always comes down to mismanagement. And as the person managing the project, that makes it my fault.
No, I can imagine. That just sounds really there's always that painful balance of how much responsibility is too much. / when you're trying to manage an entire team, you're like this. What do you mean it's a hard task? And then you're even finding the right balance of people's skill set and all that stuff. I've definitely seen that kind of stuff a lot with games, especially in new studios. So I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, that you're really hoping this next game development will go a bit smoother. We're going to call it.
Yeah, so I made the decision for the next game that our programmer, Ben Pateman, he's quite a story programmer. He's been with us for about 2 years now, and he's an absolute dream. He just gets through with it. He's bollocked me a few times. Well, technically he hasn't. He said if I was the project lead, I would say this, and this, but I'm not. So, and then winky face at the end, or he'll just laugh if we were talking in person. And so for the next game, I said to him, look, you're better than me at managing this stuff. I'll pay you more, and you can be the project manager for it. Because ultimately, if there's someone better than you in a team, and it benefits you both, then just put them in it. There's no point me just dancing on my ego to try and just bolster myself if it's going to suffer for the rest of the team and for the title at the end. So yeah, Ben's taking the reins next time around. He knows what he's doing. I can sit there and just come up with my ideas and just make sure he gets paid and everyone gets paid well enough. Because ultimately, at the end of the day as well, I'm sort of offering jobs to these people, and if I cock it up because of my own hubris, then these people are out of jobs. So I feel like I sort of owed it to them as well, that their effort isn't wasted and that they can be more comfortable in their employments with the idea that I'm not there making stupid decisions on the fly.
Makes a lot of sense. One of the final things I'm curious about is, so obviously, COVID has changed, we'll say a ton. And you, have had your game delayed. You've had to adapt to that entire thing. I'm curious, kind of, now that we've been, I guess this for 9 months or so.
Yeah.
How much has that changed the game? How much has that changed timelines in the game? All that fun stuff.
I would love to blame COVID for all the problems with the development. I would absolutely love to do that. However, we were always a remote studio, so we've hired people from all around the world. So our concept artist was Natsuko Murayama, and she's now in Japan. Angelica, I can't remember her full name. It was about 5 years ago, but a lady called Angelica, who's Mexican, who lives in LA, and then. Luckily, Ben actually lives down my road. It's just pure coincidence that we happen to know each other because I think it was like the third program that joined our team. But we were always a remote studio because when I first started this up, I was saying to the investors, sort of blowing this whole yarn of, all these other people, they waste money on studios to have everyone together, and we just don't need that. We don't need to move people down here. I quickly realized there's a reason why they do that, and that's so they can all help each other on the fly. But COVID luckily didn't affect development that much because we were already working remotely. As I said, all the cock-ups for development fall on my shoulders, which is why I keep trying to find better people to do the tasks that I'm crap at. No, we were fortunate in that way, and unfortunate in that I was at the helm of it.
Makes sense, and there's some humility in what you're saying there, because I gave you the easiest out in the world. You're like, yeah, that COVID really messed it up. It was horrible. It delayed us 6 months all by itself. Damn COVID, damn.
No, as I said, I love to blame COVID, but the thing is, everything's online nowadays. Like, people could just ask anyone in the team, be like, oh, what did COVID do? Like, oh, nothing. George was shit, though.
Yeah.
This is the world we live in. Like, if I'm not honest, someone will just call me out in the future. So it's best to sort of hold my hands up, admit what I did badly, and then just try and find a way to rectify it so it doesn't happen again.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So let's make sure we have all the information right for the game. So the game is Woodsalt. You are the lead of Team Woodsalt. The game is available December 9th, which is probably around when this episode comes out. Available on Steam and Switch on December 9th, I believe.
That is correct, Steam and Switch.
See, you've already answered the default question of when's this coming to Switch, which is impressive. So I have to ask you, do you have other console plans in the future, or is it really depending on how the game is going?
So, because of my past experience in video game industry, I'm actually fairly close friends with, I can't remember the name of his technical role, but he's sort of like the main guy to get third-party games in for Sony Europe. I know people on Xbox as well. So I was privy to knowing about the PS5 and the Xbox Series X like years before they were announced. I said, oh, you should develop it for that. But maybe Sony, like PlayStation, on another level, but I don't really feel that Xbox is the right place for Woodsalt. I don't think that PlayStation is quite the right place. I think, personally, Switch and Steam, especially Switch. So obviously, I've been playing it on the computer since we started working on it. And I've only recently downloaded it onto Switch because we had a test kit, but Ben kept hold of that because he needed it for the testing. I think it works best on Switch. I think it works best on sort of more portable ways because of sort of the way the game is designed is that you can, pick it up, play it. There's no checkpoints or anything. It'll just save where you are. So I think I just described a checkpoint actually, so that's stupid. But there's the game just constantly rolls. It's like a book. And I think it really suits a portable nature or a small screen nature. And I think it suits Steam as well because there's a big community for that on Steam, a big community for that on PC. There is a chance that in the future, if we sell our souls to the devil, we might port it to mobile as well.
Way better the question I was about to ask. I was going to say, have you heard of this small device that is still kicking? It's still alive in the most important of circles, called the PlayStation Vita. I believe you still have 6 months to get a games on there.
Oh, you don't need to tell me about the PS Vita, man. I would love to put on the PS Vita. The PS Vita is the sickest console. Like it was
it was. I've still got it around here. I use it to play Persona 4 after I got torn to shreds on Twitter. I was like, I should probably replay this. My opinion still stands firm on the dungeons of Persona 4, but that's just my opinion, and I'm not comparing ourselves to them. It is a masterpiece. I just personally don't like the dungeons. I would love to put the game on PS Vita. I spoke to my friend at Sony. I'm not going to name him just in case we turn out to be a massive success and he gets bollocked for it. Shot in the dark, obviously, but I spoke to him and said, I want to bring this to PS Vita, man. He says, I wouldn't do it. I said, you also wouldn't quit your high-paying job to start a game on a whim. And yet here we are.
Here we are.
I would love to bring it to Vita. I know I put it on the Vita subreddit, and there are a bunch of people commenting on the trailer that we put out a couple of months ago, so they want us to bring it to Vita. If Sony just said, fuck it, put it on Vita, then I'll be like, yes, 100 times yes. I would put the money into it like that. If there was enough support for it to go on Vita, immediately, yeah, I'd be like, I wouldn't pause the development for the next one because porting it to Vita won't take that much because Unity is pretty good like that. But I would adore that. That would be excellent, and it would also mean that I can postpone admitting defeat and putting stuff onto mobile in a future date because I really don't want to do that. Like if I can focus on a different console. But yeah, that's really the only one. We did think about 3DS for a while, but then we'd have to add a whole dual screen.
Also, that world is like gone. Like we are fine. We don't care about the 3DS. I don't care if Nintendo still puts a game out every year for some god unknown reason. It is not. It is the two portable systems are the Switch in quotes and the Vita. We don't discuss the mobiles. We don't discuss the iPads. I don't know what games are on them. Which is funny because like I make games that could easily go on them, but I don't touch those worlds because that takes too much work. But we are a Vita society. We will stay a Vita society. Long live the Vita. Remember, Vita means life in Japanese.
Yeah, and it is such a good console. It still is. It's excellent. I mean, you were playing games like Rayman Legends on it, which was also on like the Xbox One. I was like, it was playing this like so long ago. Like, yeah, it didn't work as great because obviously you needed an extra control to sort of get the little glowy things on some of them on Rayman Legends, but it ran great. Guacamelee 2, got all the Final Fantasies. Final Fantasy 10 was on there. Yeah, no, it was excellent. So yeah, if we can do that, I mean, the only reason we would ever port it to mobile would be to crack into the Chinese market, but that in and of itself is sort of like a moral and ethical dilemma for us, or for me specifically, because Woodsalt has a lot of sort of discussion about politics and government, so it doesn't go into like real world politics. It doesn't discuss like one side's better than the other type thing. But Chinese censorship is super hot on making like you can't say anything dissenting to government, and I'm very aware that if we tried to publish out there, there'd be a high chance that they try to censor out like some of the violence, some of the conversations that happen in it, and not to mention their huge list of human rights violations. That's if we could ever find a way to ethically publish in China, but I don't know. I think that's a pretty impossible thing. Our main focus is translate it into other languages for the Switch and Steam, and if there is that outpouring of support for Vita, then I can just show that to my guy at Sony, be like, mate, come on, help me out here.
Yeah, after that great discussion, which I didn't expect Vita to be as popular with you too. Just to clarify then, is there any other spot we should be sending the people to go check out the game? So obviously we said where their thing, is there any spot, social media wise, any of that?
Oh, so I'm basically banned from social media by our PR people, because I keep making jokes that don't land and just annoy people, as the website can probably attest to. I think the best way, if people want to know more about the game, is to join our Discord. We've got links in all of our videos, and I can't say the link here, mostly because I don't remember, because it's a jumble of letters, but I'm sure you can help out with that. But the Discord is a really good community. Everyone there is like really excited for the game, which honestly is really nice for me to see. I've been working on it for 6 years. I've seen the best and worst of it. And to see people actually excited for it is great. And also because they get to bully me in there, which is quite funny. Like, just it'll go between people being really nice to me because they're excited to talk to someone making a game, and then just ripping the shit out of me for the mistakes that I make in the game.
Perfect.
So yeah, it's good. Like Discord, our Discord's a great place. Especially we have our sort of work chat in there, read only, but you can maybe see like some of the development discussions between us and maybe get an insight there as well.
Perfect.
How this thing works.
George, I want to thank you for your time today, and I appreciate our conversation. And I'll be sure to put that Discord link in there, and everyone go check out Woodsalt.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for your time, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to one of these fun interview episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today with me, that's right, we actually have AJ with me for once, and we're here to talk about kind of a game, kind of a film, kind of a VR interactive experience. So to get us started, maybe start with the director because this is a film. Could you guys tell us who you are and what we're here to talk about?
Absolutely, yeah. Hey guys. Well, first of all, thank you for having us. I'm Jorge Tereso. I'm the director of Gloomy Eyes, which is a VR experience that was featured in South by Southwest last year. And we won an award, so that made us really happy. And that's why we're here, to talk about that.
Yeah, sorry, I was saying I'm Julian, the producer of the project. I'm here with Jorge, happy for our prize last year. And I'm happy because we're in Argentina, stuck right now, and we're not able to travel to any festivals or film awards or whatever.
So actually, that's a really good kicking off point. You guys won the South by Southwest award this year, or was it last year?
It was last year. This year we got invited, but we couldn't go, which was really bad for us. But last year it was an amazing trip for us. We were there for a week, and we absolutely loved the festival.
Yeah, I have not had the fortune to visit South by in a physical sense. I've done a few of the virtual. That is, if people don't know the film world, South by Southwest is like the festival. Especially for kind of these, modern's the wrong word, but these new takes on an old medium. So to hear that you guys won an award at South by is really cool.
Yeah, we got to travel a lot with the project, and we also got to travel to France and to many other places, and it got into about like 35, I think, different festivals, and yeah, it was it was a great experience. Mainly because I think it was because we did something that was pretty new, that we hadn't seen before, which is a VR experience, but it wasn't a game, it was storytelling. So it was kind of like expanding something that was there to play with, which is storytelling in virtual reality. And we took that and we did this series, this 3-episode series. And I think that it had a pretty big impact because it was something pretty new.
Yeah, so everyone's familiar on your PR side, Danielle, and then actually gives access to the project. I watched all 3 episodes. I think, AJ, did you watch, was it the first and second episode?
Yeah, I watched the first 2.
So obviously, I can kind of see this as a cool storytelling moment for you guys. But kind of, what made you guys go for this VR experience versus like a normal 2D screen? Was it just the emerging technology? Was it something new to try? Was it like your artistic ideas?
Well, we've been doing 3D animation for the past like 15 years, and ever since we started, we wanted to be inside this 3D 3D world that we were creating, because we were always experiencing it through a screen, and that has a lot of limits. When you put the headset on and see the animations you have created, you get into a very different world, and the emotions that you can make the viewer experience, or that you can like invite the viewer to experience, are completely different to what you get looking at the screen. Virtual reality is just starting. It's going to get way better, and but the tools we had like this past 2 or 3 years, we thought that were good enough to create an emotional story.
Also, what happened, it's like we already knew some rules about animation and 3D animation, and we created a lot of commercials and also short films. But once we started creating things in the VR world, we realized that most of the rules that we already knew for storytelling needed to change in order to tell the story, and to also make a better enjoyment of the experience, because the experience of watching something in VR is something completely different on a short film, for instance. And I mean, if you didn't experience it, it's like a little bit difficult to tell you about the excitement that it gives you, you know. So that's new for us as well, as storytellers, basically.
Yeah, you're using VR as your medium really adds, as you mentioned, that kind of third, it's funny to say third dimension, but that, I mean, you can't just say, oh, I experienced it in a movie theater. It's much more intimate in a way, because it's just you experiencing this creation, and it's as a media, and especially the way that you guys did it, because most, at least for me, most VR film experiences have been effectively like a 3D camera GoPro rig, and not a set piece that you can walk around.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a huge difference between what's known as 360 video in VR and 3D animation in VR, which is something that is rendered in real time, just like any game that's coming out nowadays. So in a way, it's a lot more interactive than watching any other story, because you control the camera inside the little world that you build.
You are the camera.
You are the camera, yeah. Your eyes are the camera inside the story, so you decide what to look at, and you get your own perspective on the story.
And that's a very interesting topic, and one that actually a conversation AJ and I were starting to have right before we got on this call. And so I'm curious for you guys, what was your line? Like, you had balanced a line in the sand of where is it worth to have players interact with something versus not, kind of with that, telling the story and dealing with that technological hurdle.
Well, I think we made the right choice, putting the story first and not adding interactivity to a story that didn't need interactivity. When I say interactivity, I mean having controls in your hands and changing what happens, or making certain decisions, or just like it happens in games or in interactive stories as well, which exist, and that's something that we are doing right now in another project. But in Gloomy Eyes, we tried many different things. Like, if you take the amount of things that we tried and discarded, I think you can come up with hours of VR content that never saw the light of day. We tried some interactivities that had to do with these Egyptian symbols that we found. So you had to grab your controls and do the Egyptian symbols in the air, and it was like completely unnecessary. I mean, it was fun to do unless you had a wall that was nearby, but it didn't really have anything to do with the story. So we ended up taking that out and just making it a passive story in a linear timeline. And we think that was the best decision at the moment.
Yeah, and also that something that Jorge mentioned, which makes a lot of sense with the way we try to do Gloomy Eyes from the beginning, was taking away everything that wasn't necessary or was just an imposition of a market or ideas that were too complex and weren't understandable or were like too tricky to get. So in this simplification, I feel like Gloomy, what has is like almost everyone can relate to it, like from a very, very young kid to a very old man, you know, so, or women or whatever. So that's like something that really came up from this simplification, I believe.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because as a filmmaker, your medium is what you want to show the person, and the way that you guys did it, of your eyes are the camera, but there's no, you can't pause it and like, okay, I want to look at this character. That's not the experience that you wanted. You guys give the person experiencing it actually like it's a true film experience. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
And it's cool to see, because it's interesting that this project is like the combination of both Mike and I. Mike is a VR developer, he has experience in that, and I'm a filmmaker and I have experience in that. So when he sent me this idea, I was like, okay, this is cool. A little worried. I hop in, I'm like, okay, it looks good. Okay, it's good. But what is, like, with your experience developing a VR project like this, even though the market isn't there for high-end headsets, but everybody has a phone and everybody could in theory experience this, do you see VR being your next medium?
Well, in my case, after working on this project for about 3 years, the last year being like the one where I dedicated the most of my time to it, to the series, I feel like I need a little bit of a break, especially because of my eyesight and my like very strong need to be outside in nature after using way too much VR. Like I would use tilt brush for maybe 3 hours in a row, and that was pretty intense. I think that like, I don't know, I see kids now that are growing with this technology and they have absolutely no problem with doing long experiences or long games, or like spending a couple of hours inside, and you have to tell them to stop using it, because if not they would just stay there all day. But in my case, like I feel like I need a break, and I needed to go back to the simplicity of the screen, of the little window, like something that I used to feel that was too limiting. Like now I miss it a little bit, because in VR you can see everything, and it's hard to do beautiful compositions when you don't have that window. So I feel like I want to go back to the screen. I want to go back to doing flat things for a while, and I think that's also good, because that'll give VR a little bit of time to evolve and when I, like, maybe in a couple of years when I'm ready to do something new in VR, hopefully the technology will have advanced to a new interesting point.
It's interesting that you bring up the idea of creating composition in VR, because Mike and I were having a conversation this morning, and we got onto the topic of how the next Hitman game from IO Interactive will have VR. And I was talking, and I was like, okay, that video game is these massive set piece happenings. And I'm like, okay, that's going to be a pain to make in VR if you're just letting the person freely move around.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there are problems when you just let people walk around blindly.
Yeah, I guess it didn't necessarily connect to me until we were talking right now. Like, for me, because when I was in Gloomy Eyes, I was trying to use my filmmaker eye and, okay, what should be the shot? Not, okay, I'm just going to walk all around. So, you mentioning that, like, there might be people that just stand there and watch it. And so you can't create that window that you're limited by in 2D, but in VR, it's a hindrance because you can't make that window exist.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. That's interesting that you were trying to figure out from which point of view things look the best, and that's something that we try to get people to do, especially with light and with small little worlds. We didn't want to do something huge in VR where you go in and you don't know where to look at, but we wanted to have a very theatrical experience where things came out of nowhere and gave you like an emotional experience, even though it's like a zombie story. We wanted it to be very emotional.
So going down that road, I was kind of curious, thinking about kind of when I made different VR worlds. Did you ever have the issue of being concerned the player's going to miss something? By that, I mean where they're either looking in a different direction or they're not looking kind of when action's going to happen. And did you guys ever try to make a point of making sure that you controlled the player to make sure they don't miss that action?
Yeah, like we had a lot of conversations about that topic because people, depending on their personality, they experience things in such different ways. Like some people need to know everything that's happening and going on, so they stand as far as possible, like they lean into a wall, like I don't know, 10 feet apart from the experience, and they want to see everything. So like that point of view for us was horrible. But at some point we said, okay, we have to let go and let people do their own thing, because we can't really like force them into standing where we wanted them to stand, you know. And other people got like super close to things, and I don't know, that was also like that's a beautiful way to see it as well. So and other times, like maybe you show it to I don't know, to a young kid, like I don't know, like 12 years old, and they sit on the ground and they see it in a way that surprises you. So it was good in some ways, and in other ways we just had to let it go.
Yeah, we also try to focus a lot on the transitions, because these were like really important for the story and to make the viewer go from one scene to the other, as we are not cutting as in a normal movie. You don't cut to the next scene. You have to follow the action, and the transitions there were like super important. Sometimes we came to the fact that maybe one transition wasn't working properly because we showed it to different people and they were not following the action. And that was a very important and huge work that we did, because if not, the story will be incomplete without this transition. So we pay a lot of attention to that. And also, making transitions in VR can give you like new dimensions that are not available in other media. So it was fun, challenging, and also I think it came up really, really good.
I was gonna say you can't exactly just cut to a new scene in VR. There are
I mean, you can
equilibrium problems with that.
You can do it, AJ. I just would never recommend it in my life. It's like when you force a player to start walking with you. You better hope they're actually walking.
Yeah, there's so many things that you want to try inside VR once you're playing with it. Like, why don't we make the camera move slowly, like towards the sky, and that's horrible. That you can actually like
you feel sick.
Yeah, you can make people feel sick or have seizures. So like it's really an exploration that's super fun, but that's also still open. Like we haven't really I feel like we found like 1% of the options that are there. Like there's so many things that you can do without making people feel sick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's happening. It's Half-Life Alyx came out this year, in the beginning of this year, and it's the amount of things that it has that feel completely new and that are mind-blowing are amazing. And I think that's going to happen year after year for a long time.
I will say the one thing with Alex that got me was the end of level, if you will, and when it loads into the next one, every now and then it was a little jarring, and you're like, oh, okay, gotta stop and stand here instead of moving around, and then you get kind of tossed. But it's, as you say, there's a lot of options, but finding the right one to make everybody happy is nearly impossible.
Nearly impossible.
Yeah. Super impossible. Yeah. I don't think it's going to be as massive as people having phones in their hands. For at least for a long time, I think it's going to be a small group of people that actually enjoy putting the headset on every day, which exists. They're everywhere, but it's not going to be the numbers that some people used to expect when they saw VR as the next phone or as the next like interface for life.
Yeah.
I think also that what we learn with this pandemic as well is the world can change like really fast and rapid. And probably something that we thought that was not going to happen will happen. I mean, that can happen with VR as well. I mean, being confined within your house, for instance, can bring more people to VR for some reason. And I don't know, I'm being apocalyptic here, but just saying like things change a lot, and probably VR might adapt very well to a new reality as well.
It's definitely an interesting idea because let's just say movie theaters are in a perilous state right now, and in a weird way, you guys actually caught the trend before, and we're ahead of like in this merge technology and ahead of the trend of what's happening.
Yeah, without knowing it, of course.
By chance.
Yeah, by chance.
The film industry likes to throw around the term visionary, and I don't know, in a weird way, you are visionaries in the sense that you're using a technology that from here on forward is going to be a predominant technology, whether people like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That is true.
Yeah,
so
absolutely. And especially with the way it's picking up in games, I think. Like this Hitman story we're just talking about, where the game's going to come out, and at the same time a VR experience is going to go on. I think that's the way to get more people interested in VR. It's a fantastic way. and especially because the game is great. I think that if they come up with Hitman number 55, it's still gonna sell well.
Don't worry, AJ got really excited by the idea of a keep going that often. AJ, control yourself. That's not going to happen. But I think we have gotten through, I think, the bulk of mine and AJ's questions. AJ, do you have anything else you want to ask them about the experience or anything?
I mean, really, like the main, I guess my main closing question would be: do you see VR, especially with, as we were talking, it looks like movie theaters are dead by the end of 21. Do you see VR movies becoming like a Netflix style? I guess the way Netflix kind of came up in relevance, not necessarily to the relevance that Netflix became, but this technology that arose and filled a void that just wasn't filled. You see VR potentially being strong enough in the film world to fill that section.
My answer would be absolutely like a huge yes. But I think we need a lot of patience because the technology has to evolve a lot. Right now, if you go inside VR for a couple of hours, your body feels that there's something wrong. It's like, so I think that it has to do with the way with the way the input of VR is working right now. I think that needs to evolve the way we see it. Maybe with lasers, maybe with contact lenses or whatever, or many things are being developed. But I think that once the technology is not invasive and it's not
tiring, as it is.
Tiring, that's going to be a huge jump. And also, I would love to see an integration between VR and AR, and yeah, that's something that I would keep on even when I sleep.
I feel like that VR AR world is like Black Mirror episodes that I look at some of those and go, man, you know what? We're heading towards that future, and I don't know if I like that future.
Yeah. I mean, every time a new technology comes out, it's scary.
Yeah.
When people came up with trains, like people were horrified. Like they were so scared. But with electricity, like, people like, yeah. There's always this, and there's always a bad side to when things come out. Like television was amazing for all of us, but it also like washed our brains and made us watch so much advertising that we're all confused now. But I think that there's a good side as well, and that's what we try to. That's the side that we're trying to play on. You know?
I mean, what worries me about it is what Jorge mentioned is true. I mean, when something new comes up, it's scary and everything. The thing with new technologies for me is like, they are new, but they also make you dependent, and that's where things get a little bit scary. I mean, if you have some amazing new technology that you can't get away from, I think that's a scary part. They can be great and a great source of entertainment and creation, which I embrace and I like. But also the side of it that makes you dependent and rely on it for so many things, that's the scary part for me.
Well, Mike, I think that's it for me.
And I think that's a scary, good way to end it.
That's a great way to end it, right?
Let's make sure we have
the depressing...
Let's make sure we have all the correct, the depressing part, the sad part, comparing everything to Black Mirror. That's the way you want to end every episode. A nice uplifting beat.
And add some tense background music.
That's true. AJ, that's your job in post. And speaking of uplifting, your game has an uplifting title called Gloomy Eyes. So your film, your interactive film. Where can people go check it out if they still want to go see it and they haven't seen it yet?
It's available right now on every VR store. There's a Quest version for the new Quest as well. It's being sold right now. It's actually selling a lot better than ever, like this past month in Quest. So I would recommend people to watch that version. And if they have a high-end headset, go in Steam or the Oculus Store.
Perfect.
I think that'll be it.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
This episode is partially brought to you by the Humble Choice program. Did you know Humble Bundle has a great monthly subscription service that lets you get a ton of video games every single month? That's right, from plans range from $5 to $20 a month, you get a hold of a bunch of free games they have available to you. And you can use our code down in the description below to go and sign up. It would help our podcast and help you see what great games are available for you this month.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at the SWW Show. You can follow me at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at LowSeatBoy. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.